Good evening, folks. I'm Allan Crow, editor of the Fife Free Press, and a very warm welcome to the first ever Flyers hockey show online. It seems a lifetime ago we were all packed into a room at Sticks for a night of hockey stories, some dressing room chat, and even a song or two from the players. We did plan to make it a regular part of the hockey season, but along came lockdown, and well, you kind of know what happened after that. So it's been a year without hockey, a full calendar year, which no one could have imagined back in March 2020. With restrictions easing, the mini EIHL series about to get underway, and thoughts turning to summer and autumn, it seems a good time to start talking about our sport once again. So tonight is a pilot for what we hopefully will have as a regular online feature until we can get together again in person and be ringside once more. We'll get some of the players to join us over the coming weeks. We'll bring back some old faces as well that you might not have seen for a good few years. But we'll start tonight with, I'm joined tonight by head coach Todd Dutiaume. Todd, it's good to see you. It seems like ages since we last talked hockey.
Well, you better believe it. I know I've bumped into you a few times out in our walks around Kirkcaldy, but that's about it. You know, it has been a while.
And it's good to see we're both suffering from lockdown here as well.
I'm telling you. I got an appointment on April 5th, so I can't wait. This is 14 and a half months. 14 and a half months. So I'm either growing it out or growing my comb over, whichever way you want to look at it.
The person behind you might be very patient as they get the. It's a double appointment. Same for me, I think.
Yeah, it's a double. She's a double.
So I suppose it's a full calendar year without ice hockey. Does that still feel strange to you?
Well, it's the first time it's ever happened. Since I was 4 years old? So completely foreign, completely bizarre. As you know from being around hockey players for a big portion of your life, we're creatures of habit. We base our entire year around a hockey season, and for that not to happen, I'd be lying to say if you didn't get out of sorts. So it's been a weird and wacky time, not only for us as hockey players, for out there in the real world, and the quicker we get back to normal, I think for everybody's sanity, the better.
I was speaking to Jeff Hutchins the other week, and he was saying it's the first time since the age of 3 he's had a full year out as well. His whole life has been like yourself. It's been coaching, playing, training, travelling, and it is. There are plus sides that need more time at home, etc., etc., etc. But hockey players like to have that routine, don't they? It's play, train, travel. It just becomes a rolling program.
Well, 100%. And it took me a long time to figure out what to do on a weekend. I mean, don't get me wrong. Weekends in the summer, the weather's nicer, but weekend in November, what do you do? And after about 3 or 4 weekends, did the girls really want me around? I think that's debatable. I've certainly settled into it. We've been fortunate. We haven't had anybody touched by COVID, but and the time off, getting to know just a different side of winter and enjoying each other's company, it has been good. But 100%, it's time to get back down to business and start looking forward to a hockey season again.
It was such an abrupt end last March. I mean, I know you guys were on the bus to Coventry when you got the call to say game off, season over. What were the immediate challenges that the club then faced when that lockdown announcement came?
I think I talked about this before, but immediately it became real because it was just this foreign, completely foreign to us. We're in a closed off circle. We're focused on playing hockey. And all of a sudden, reality hits home that they're actually canceling leagues in Europe. And then, boom, the Elite League gets canceled. That's really hit home for these guys. And then the panic kind of set in. I mean, Canada's a long way away. When they're starting to shut borders and they're starting to cancel flights, we had guys panicking that they weren't going to get home to see their families. I got to give credit to the team and the directors. It was all hands on deck, and they got everybody home safely. So, that was the main priority. And, at that point, hockey came second.
How long did it take to get everybody on a plane? Was it a matter of days, or was it longer?
I think it was probably within 2 weeks. We had everybody out who had to get out. Livy was staying. So, he stayed here for a good portion of that summer. and Emmerdal was going to make his way by vehicle. So, but everybody else, I would say within a reasonable time period, we got them home, and everybody was, I think, thankful to see their families.
Just Emmerdal was going to do a lay-by vehicle. What was he up to?
Well, his brother had come over. They're avid golfing family, and him and his brother are very close. So he came over a couple times during the season. He was with us at the end there, and their plan was to, I think if I remember correctly, he's a motorhead. So they wanted to buy a car and just travel home that way. And so they did it. They made her. But it wouldn't have been me. I would have taken a short flight.
That's a heck of a journey back in the circumstances. Some of the guys also went across to Europe. You had about 6 or 7 players heading into Europe, and some went back to North America, obviously. Are you still in touch with them? How are they doing? What's the sort of feedback what you're getting from them?
Yeah, touch base with. I mean, you got to remember, some of these guys I've worked with for quite a few years. So just guys have new families, guys starting out in new places, just to see how they're getting on and how they're enjoying it. I know I've talked to Nooch quite a few times over the winter. He's a proud father now, and he's doing great out there. It's a different challenge with language barriers and such, but he's enjoying it. Livy's doing fantastic. I've talked to Shabes a couple times in Germany. The guys are doing good.
And they're still getting to play hockey on a fairly regular basis there. I think they're doing it in batches of games, like 4 or 5 road trips at a time. I think Carlo Finucci was saying it's not just a weekend away, you're away for some time.
Yeah, I think that I just talked to him. He was leaving for a 21-day road trip or something, which is
wow.
I think driving down to Guildford and back the same day is tough. That's going to wear on a guy. But you know what? I think it's been a huge advantage because there is some guys that have taken a complete year out of hockey. I know when I did it, when the year that the B&L went defunct, and I joined the fire service, I took a year out of hockey, and at that age, was I 30, 34, maybe 34, 32, 34, somewhere. It affected me. 100% it did. And that time away from the game is going to affect some guys. Some guys will go on to new careers and they won't come back to the game. So, I was talking to Daryl Venters the other day, and a number of parents I bump into down the park, they were talking about, a year out for a kid. It's incredible. It's incredible. Kids go on and find different things. They have different interests. So everybody's going to face their challenges from taking this year out. That's
what it affects everybody, from, I suppose, the next rookies to the guys wanting that one last year. Because a year without, I take it they can't skate anywhere. There's no rinks open. So would you expect some guys will just have to say, that's it. It's not the way they want to end their careers, but they might have just, I suppose, time catches up with them.
100%. You're right, because no matter every single year, it's always some guys last year, right? And for last year, so say a guy was thinking, okay, September 20, I'm going to play one more. I'm going to give her one more go. So, he's 100% missed his last year, because if he was already thinking he had a foot out the door, then he's probably not going to play again. And we'll always probably have some sort of unfinished business with the game, because ultimately what you want is guys leaving on their own terms. We never like to see somebody injured in the game and not play again. We never like to see somebody, be let go by a team midway through his last season. There's going to be a lot of people out there with unfinished business. Hopefully they find a way to come to grips with it, and and we'll continue to move forward.
It is hard. I know that it's really hard to step out the dressing room, isn't it? Because it becomes your life. It's your bubble.
I don't think people realize how much. As I said at the start there, almost every decision is based around hockey and the hockey schedule. I went to Stephen Murphy's testimonial a couple seasons ago, and just being over there and talking to them, guys' lives are affected, guys' home lives are affected, and it's the choice we make. So it's not a complaint.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're doing it without even realizing that. Oh, I just stayed at the rink last night because we're going to Guildford first thing in the morning. So, that's probably not normal,
Yeah.
but it happens, right?
It's that strange part of sport. I mean, sport is not like a normal office job that you do 9 to 5, you go home. I mean, it's the ties that bind in that dressing room. I find are quite fascinating, and they all interlink across continents, countries, timescales as well. And when you're in that dressing room, you are very much part of that team. There's nobody's on the outside, really, are they? You've all got your place in there.
Yeah, and quickly.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing how you can see a group come together so quickly. One of the years that we noticed it right away, we had set up some preseason testing up in Dundee with our connection with Abertay.
Yeah.
And just having that laugh in the preseason testing and the guys competing, and just most of the guys didn't know each other. And, after 2 days of doing that, they walked out of there and they were teammates before the season even started. Mm-hmm. And it was one of our most successful seasons. Mm-hmm. So that chemistry, sometimes it's just that magic dust or whatever you want to call it, that it just something sprinkles on it and a team just comes together like that. You can have quality guys, but if you don't have the chemistry, it might be an uphill struggle all year.
Yeah.
Think back to the year that I was talking about it with a guy down in the park the other day. The year Nickerson was here, and there was buzz around the team, and we were in last place, and it was packed in there, but there was excitement and there was a buzz around it. We made a couple moves in end of December, January, and we went on that incredible run. Mm-hmm. And it was just that little switch in chemistry. Same team, just one or two new guys, right?
I suppose, and as a coach, the sooner that these bonds are forged, it makes your job a little bit easier. Or you've got more, you know where you're going with this team. You're not thinking, hang on a sec, player X is not fitting in yet. Some guys, I know you've spoken before, but some guys take more than a few weeks just to settle in. Just get used to British hockey, British life, I suppose. I remember when Doug Smale came across with Mark Morrison after 6 weeks. They were up in the dressing room, up in the director's room, saying, "Why are you not winning games?" And you have to point out that you just don't come from the NHL and win hockey games. It's not. It's not as simple. It should be as simple as that, but it's not.
On paper, it's easy, right? Yeah.
Yeah. He said, "Give me 6 weeks." 6 weeks, he delivered. That was him just getting his head around a completely different sport altogether. It's quite fascinating to see. There was a guy with immense talent as well that was just so far ahead of everybody else at the same time. He still had to do that. I don't know, that adaptation period. How about the guys that are leaving? The guys that are out with hockey, are you hearing from them at all? If they stopped playing hockey or they're moved into other jobs, is that affecting any of the players at all with the lockdown?
Well, it's funny you mention that. I just talked to Kyle Haynes, maybe a month ago, maybe, just to catch up. I love the kid. I can't say enough about the guy. He's moved to a new province. And like you said, I mean, he was in coaching for a while, looking for a new job. Probably be a great guy to have on here one day. I mean, I think we should probably make it happen. I had talked to him about coming on, just to have a catch up, because I think he was a fan favorite. Mm-hmm. I know he was a fan favorite, and just some memorable moments with him. So, absolutely. And so, keeping in touch with these guys. I hadn't spoken to Nicker until I went over to Ireland there, and I bumped into him, and it was just great having a beer and catch up, right? Mm-hmm. Because you're right. I mean, you form these bonds, and they are for life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I suppose. I could talk to Kyle Haynes. We'll have to talk about that goal against Braehead.
Of course, it's synonymous with that, right?
It's not a bad legacy to leave behind, isn't it? The minute he walks into Fife, in 10 years' time, 20 years' time, somebody will mention that goal against the Clan. It's not a bad thing to remember by.
Unbelievable. And I mean, like, these moments, these magic moments that I've been so lucky to be a part of, and these guys have created over the years. It's, when you really think back and you think about those, It's fantastic. And we've been lucky because I think as a general rule of thumb, like we've worked with just some wonderful, wonderful people.
Mm-hmm. And they all seem to have, whether the team is successful or it's been a tough year, they all seem to go away with a positive view of Fife, the organisation, the town, the fans. You don't hear many players leaving Fife and bitching about the place. I think it's quite a testament to everybody within the club, really.
Yeah, I mean, it's a place that not everybody understands when they first come. But once you play in front of that crowd, and you get talking to folk and stuff like that, I'm telling you, even talking to some of the opponents that have played there over the years, they rave about the atmosphere, and some guys love playing the villain. Some guys love coming in and soaking it all up because it does. The Fife Ice Arena probably reminds them of like an old junior rink in North America somewhere, where the fans are right on top of you, and and you're up for a crazy night when you come in there. And sometimes I think that we've been around it for so long, you can take it for granted until a Kyle Haynes scores that goal or whatever, you name your moment, and then then it brings it all back to you.
Yeah, I came across the Matt Nickerson fight with Kevin Bergen the other week there, and I noticed that Fife and Braehead were having a bit of a Twitter spat over iconic moments. I thought it's still. One guy tweeted me, I think it was an ex-player, to say, what a stupid article, because it wasn't a fair fight, because Bergen is not in the same level of heavyweight as big Matt Nickerson, but he still stood up and he took one heck of a thump. I remember after that game that the place erupted. I mean, that changed that whole game. It changed the energy of the game. It changed Matt needed it. I remember saying Matt needed that fight. He'd been through the ringer at the time, and afterwards the guy was the adrenaline was pouring out of him, and it was still that iconic moment of him standing there with his arms raised like a gladiator. And I thought, geez, that's about 3-4 years ago now. In fact, that's even longer now, I think. It's scary how fast the time goes. So I guess right about now we should really be talking about playoffs, championship finals. Again, it's kind of strange that this is the business end. This is the bit where everything comes together, and yet you have to look back instead of looking ahead. It's quite frustrating to miss out on that end of season show.
Well, I mean, you've heard it probably 1,000 times from any hockey player, that certainly from North America that you've talked to, playoffs are what it's all about. You see our guys, they up their game. They're hopefully peaking at the right time. We've been fortunate enough to go to Nottingham now 3 times as a club, and every time I go there, the experience is just incredible. And we'd love to get back there again. But even them 2-game series, just the draws that we've had over the years, I mean, you almost couldn't write it, because we always thought of Braehead as like the evil empire. And when we first joined the league, I mean, that was a horrible place to have to go and play, because you knew you were up against it all night. Yeah. And slowly we chipped away. Ryan always put together, incredibly gifted and tough teams. And that rivalry just built over the years. And you mentioned a moment. I still remember when TJ Keg dumped their defenseman in front of the net and scored the winner to send us through. I mean, just everything that happened, there was so much emotion tied in it, like every game. And invariably the season ended with us playing them, and then went right into playoffs where we met them back to back. And it just felt like it was an absolute war, and probably some of the most enjoyable times as a group of guys.
It's funny how these rivalries just suddenly spark. Obviously, Braehead, Fife, there's that Scottish rivalry. Then you've got Fife and Manchester have gone pretty much hammer and tongs over the last few years. Again, Ryan's style of hockey is, it's in your face, it's physical, it's going to get a reaction from a Fife crowd. There's been some crazy moments in them as well, but it seems to be every season. I remember Mark Morrison once said that we always have to have somebody we hate in a sporting rivalry. Back then it was Peterborough Pirates, Randy Smith, or it was Guildford Flames with Stan Marple. He said every year the Fife fans zoom in on one club, or even one player.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think that's not unique to Fife, but it does sometimes feel like that sometimes.
Well, no, I mean, look at it. I mean, I can add another one. Like, look when our assistant coach played across the tape. I mean, like he was a supervillain back then, and we love to blame everything on him.
Mhm.
And you know what? You tie that emotion in there, not for any reason other than I'm a former hockey player. You get caught up in it, and it just heightens that game. And those heightened games seem to mean more. And you know what? Like I'm sure, like I've always said, I'm sure that the crowd, like we can feed off the crowd. We all know that. We know that the crowd in Fife can be a huge momentum swinger.
Mhm.
What I haven't given a lot of credence before is, maybe the crowd can read our emotion. If we come out flat, how could we expect a crowd to get us into the game? Same thing. Like if we come out and there's an edge to the game and there's a buzz, it just ripples through the team and B, the crowd. Like I've always said that they're one and the same half the time.
Yeah. Yeah, it certainly is. It's always been that old-time hockey rink where the noise factor can be astonishing, and it's fascinating. When it all ignites, it is still one of the best places to watch hockey, without a doubt, regardless of the result.
Remember, while we're going down memory lane, we'll get to the future here right away because as we're all excited about, we want hockey again. I mean, you remember that? I can't remember what year it was now, but you remember that we were down like something like 3-1 to Nottingham, and we were hanging on and hanging on and hanging on, and then all of a sudden it was a boom, boom, boom.
Yeah.
And we ended up winning that hockey game against one of what we consider the big clubs. And that was 100%. Like once we had the momentum, you couldn't stop it. It was almost like nothing could happen that was going to stop that because it had just turned, and we've seen it turn good and bad over the years, but once you get the momentum in that building, even talking to former coaches or coaches that we work against, they said the same thing. They want to stop that momentum in that building, and they try to do it quickly.
I suppose from a coaching perspective, then, if the momentum goes against you, whether it's home or away, is it possible to turn it back around? Because part of you must think, hang on a sec, you can see it, you see the game changing and turning. How do you turn that back around again as a coaching team?
Well, I think when things are not going according to plan, sometimes calling a timeout and refocusing can help. Sometimes it can work against you. Sometimes you just need to, just have somebody stand up and take the bull by the horns. And other times you're looking to refocus after a period, or a scuffle gets you going or whatever. That's why, Tommy Muir was great at it. And that's a huge momentum swinger too. Same thing with when we talked about Nicker, a fight can do that as well. Although, the Elite League is definitely moving away from that. That's the way international hockey is moving. And, sometimes if you don't move the times, you get left behind.
Yeah, so I suppose we've got the EHL series about to kick off with the 4 teams down south. There's some Fife interest there with Sam Jones, Adam Jones. I think that Shane Owen's back over as well.
Yeah.
Mixed emotions not being part of it, perhaps. I know it wasn't a thing for Fife. I think it was the right call not to be part of it for the club. But wearing your hockey coaching hat, must be thinking that'd be fun to do. Yeah,
it would be great. I mean, when something's going on, we're just like kids, right? You don't want to be left out. You don't want to be missing out. You got the buzz about hockey. You can tell these guys have been working hard. They've had to put this together in an incredibly short amount of time, but when you get your working hat on, that's it. You're just ultra focused. But yeah, we would have loved to have been down there and just been part of something that's never been done before. I mean, I think the most important thing, I've talked about it with a number of people, is that we have to be focused on the World Championships here. These guys need to get up to some sort of game shape and speed, because it's the best in the world they're going to be facing off against. So I think this season or this series is probably that's the most crucial thing. I understand there's no relegation this year, which is great. I think they get 2 years up there, and get to dip their toe in the water this year and have, well, an experience of a lifetime, and hopefully it continues forward.
One thing that also they've done is they've brought in this draft system for building team rosters. With that sort of innovation, could that go league-wide now for the next season? An EIHL draft?
It's hard. I mean, I get the concept, and I think for that series, I think it's fabulous. It spreads the talent around and stuff. But you know what you'll find is a lot of these players, they do still work locally, like, and we're talking about even the top guys. They have careers. They don't want to be far from their base. They have families that, live there and are settled there. So, it's a little easier when guys are making vast amounts of money to move all around and up and down the country. But when you're talking about, the salaries that they're on, which are by no means low, guys want to have some personal control over their lives and their careers. Yeah. So I like it, an idea, but, would it work? We'd definitely have some difficulties, that's for sure.
It'd make, I suppose, your recruitment plans very different as well if they said, here's the people you're getting, as opposed to going out and signing players. I suppose it'd be a very different experience, wouldn't it?
I suppose so. I mean, but at the end of the day, like, I think, I've always said to any imports that we're recruiting or any of the guys playing for the team, like, listen, the main thing is you have to be happy. And, if some guy wasn't happy about coming up north to one of the Scottish teams, he's from the Guildford area, he just wouldn't, he'd be a professional, he'd play, but you want these guys playing to the top of their game, and, ultimately they need to be happy, right?
Yeah. So I suppose we're kind of 6 months away from what should be the next season. Given restrictions they're starting to lift now, are you optimistic of a September face-off?
That's the $1 million question. I mean, what we've all been through and stuff like that, I think it's important that, certainly my mentality is, listen, stay positive about it, be prepared, and if she does come about, everybody's going to be thrilled. We'll be thrilled to get back at it. We talk to agents, we talk to players, but until you have a definitive date, it's really just talking. But we definitely have a lot of interest out there. And, we also keep in touch with some of our former players just to see what they're up to and, what they're thinking.
I suppose at the end of each season, you would, in your own head, the players that want to come back, the players that you want back, the guys that want to move on, hang them up, do different things. I suppose that year's break, that kind of changes that kind of thinking a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, and at the end of the day, we all get attached. I get attached as a coach. You have guys you love to work with, and you build things around there. You come in and you watch hockey week in and week out. You have your favorites. You have your past favorites. I mean, I think what we have to remember is hockey's always going to be moving forward. And just like I said, it's every X amount of players last year. This year's X amount of players first year as well, right? The mill keeps going. There's a ton of hockey players out there that are going to be passionate about getting back to the game that they love. And ultimately, I'm not saying this is going to happen, but the one season that we almost did a complete rebuild turns out to be our most successful season. We were talking about that a couple weeks ago. So, we're looking at everything from an optimistic side, and the main thing is just getting that date and getting back to her, right?
I was going to say, there's only so much you can do until you get that start date. I mean, I suppose you and Jeff can start looking, talking, but until they say, when's my first game? When's my flight into Scotland? You're kind of a little bit in limbo still. Is it still too early to start that work in depth?
Well, no, and I mean, I think that the Flyers as an organization, this is a great opportunity to just move ourselves forward and you put things in place that we are going to be ready. And we're not always what's the word I use? We're not always very forthcoming with information for whatever reason, right? There'll be a variety of reasons. For me, I've always said I love talking to folk. I love doing things like this. I incredibly enjoyed the hockey shows that started up there in Sticks. I thought it was fantastic. It was just creating a connection to people again.
Yeah.
So walking around talking about hockey with people, I love doing. I think that's really the basis that us as an organization should really put forward. Talk to people, have people talk to us, and us talk to people. And I think that's a recipe for success. So, there's always, I remember, like, man, Fife is nuts. As far as like the rumor mill goes in Fife, ever since back in, what was it? Was it teletext?
Oh yeah.
And like, remember there was that Flyers hotline you could call in? Honestly.
That's right. 50 pence.
I'm almost certain that Fife must be one of the biggest hotbeds for rumors and gossip going around. But when you're not forthcoming all the time with information, maybe that's half the enjoyment about it. But I think that definitely we can be more open and just have more fun with it, because we're in a different era now, and people can laugh at themselves. People can take jokes and not take themselves so serious, and then go out on the ice and do the business, right?
Yeah. I remember the old Flyers hotline was at 50 pence a minute.
It
was one of the most. At one point, I think it was one of the most successful in British hockey. I remember it was Gary Moran set them all up way back in the 80s, 90s, I don't know. We actually recorded a jingle with a singing kettle, believe it or not, because their kids were hockey players at the time, going through junior development, and we actually went to the studio, and they actually did the Flyers fax, was it? The challenge was getting a phone that actually worked in places like Paisley, Altrincham, and phoning the period-by-period reports. It sounds so antiquated now in the era of social media and apps, but that was the only place. Friday night, the calls on a Friday night went through the roof. Just people wanted to know what was happening, who was injured, who was playing, what's the coach saying. It was an incredible machine, and very, very simple, very basic. So I suppose your next aim is to get. Have you been back to the rink at all, or back in your office since last March? You had a chance to blow the dust off it?
Well, I've been in a couple times. I think that I have to be careful, because the building was shut for a number of months there. B, it wouldn't be fair to be in there when you actually have the custodians in there working and taking care of things, and I'm just walking in like I normally do. So I've been in a couple times, just my office, to get some of my work and do some of the things. But as a general rule of thumb, we did a stock take and just trying to get things ready on that side when we're talking about equipment orders and such. But for the past couple months, we've stayed away, and and that's another thing, like the amount of time that is spent in that office over a winter. I dread to think, but you know what? Hopefully we get back there soon enough, and just start interacting with people again.
I suppose I suppose you'll never get a day when somebody doesn't talk ice hockey with you when you're out in your walk, around town and that. I guess that I'm guessing the fans are equally as keen just to get back ringside. They all want to know when, but they're also very, very keen just to get back ringside again.
Allan, I don't have to tell you, you've been going a lot longer than I have. It's a huge part of people's lives. It just is. Right from the kids that play every week and they're down there and they drag their parents to the game, to people who've been going to that rink for the last 50 plus years. That's a big, big commitment and a big part of your life. And, we don't want to lose these folk. We want to make sure that we get them back and we get new folk into the building. But it's going to be a challenge, not only to the Flyers, but I think to everybody. There'll be people that 100% come back to games. But, as we talked about hockey players not having that hockey and getting on into other things or different careers or different likes and dislikes, people are exactly the same as hockey players. So we're hoping that the pull of the game and the pull of that building brings them back in when we're allowed.
I suppose the other part is reassuring them it's safe. You want them ringside, but you also want to give them that it's safe to be here. Whether it's a full, I think I was speaking to some guys that work in theatres, and October is when they're looking to get back up to, potentially, back to how they used to operate. Social distancing in a big crowd, it's so fraught with complications of where you sit, eating food, not eating food. So you want that message to say when you come to the rink, it's safe. You've got your sanitizer. Do you wear a mask? I don't know. There's still a million and one unknown things that will get thrown up in the next 2 or 3 months. But hopefully, as things open up, they'll start to see a route back to the rink with a bit of luck and back on a Saturday night with the car park full.
Well, I don't know about COVID, but I reckon if you spent 50 years in the Fife Ice Arena, you're just about immune to everything, aren't you? I reckon that's about as good as a tetanus shot these days, hanging out in there.
Well, fingers crossed we get back ringside pretty soon. Many thanks for your time tonight, Todd. It's been brilliant. We'll definitely get some of the old boys back on with you. I think we'll get some stories from the dressing room. You mentioned a couple of names to me already that we could do. I think we'll go down really, really well with the fans. Going right back to the BNL days, which is scarily a very long time ago. You forget it's 20 plus years, I don't know. It seems like a lot longer.
Okay.
Definitely we're all getting much older. But many thanks again for your time tonight, Todd, and we'll get this on to the Flyers app quickly. And to the fans that are listening, many thanks for your time as well. We'd love to hear your suggestions as well. Who would you want to see on the show? Who'd like to have a chat with? Fire the names into us via Flyers social media platforms. We'll do our best to track them down, and we'll tease some stories out of them.
Yeah, fantastic.
So thanks again, and have a good night, folks.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.